Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Monday. All of our guests today, including Elliotte Friedman, standing by, sponsored by Passant Motors. It's No Tax November at Passant Motors this month. Let Passant pay the GST with the purchase of your next new-to-you vehicle. Learn more at basantmotors.com. Joining us now, as he does every second Monday, busy weekend in the National Hockey League, from the 32 Thoughts podcast, Hockey Night in Canada, our friend Elliotte Friedman. Elliotte, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good, guys. How are you guys doing?
Very good. Very good. Not so much the Canucks. They've lost three. You know the story. They've lost 3 in a row. The road trip started out fairly well. Not so much now. Elliotte, you tweeted this out on the weekend and talked about it on the Hockey Night in Canada. But how important is clarity when it comes to the Canucks coaching situation?
I think it's look, Don. You've been around a long time, Rick. You've been around a long time. I've been around way too long, and Canucks fans have seen everything in their lives. I think we can all see what's going on here. We all see where this is headed. It's just a matter of when. And I just don't think it's a good thing to have hanging over your organization and your team. And I don't know when they're going to do this. I don't know when a change is going to be made, but I think we all recognize it's going to be made at some point in time. Look, I don't like to see people kind of like. I just don't like to see what's happening to Boudreau. If you don't think that. If you don't think that he's doing a great job, then make the change. And I don't think that it's not a good thing to publicly to be hung out like this. Yeah. And I think people inside the organization feel the same way, because I think they think it's affecting the overall way that the team is playing.
Elliotte, you say you've been around for a long time, and you have, just like Rick and I. Have you ever seen a situation like this? Can you remember a situation like this where a well-respected head coach is being called out publicly by the team president?
You see, I don't have a problem, Don, if it's once. Mm-hmm. The problem is it's like here's the thing. Like, part of me looks at this and says, we always say people in hockey, they always speak in cliches. They're too boring. They don't say what they really think, and it makes the sport boring. And sometimes I agree with that. We can't. Jim Rutherford, as you guys know, is a great quote. He comes out, he shoots from the hip, he says what he wants to say, what he wants to say, and I do think overall we should be encouraging of that. The problem is it's happened more than once. It's happened several times now, and I think you reach a point where you say, okay, that's enough. The only time I can remember anything similar to this off the top of my head, Don, is the first year of the Raptors, Isaiah Thomas and Brendan Malone. They had a very public feud at the end of that year. But Isaiah was a rookie executive, and Brendan Malone, although he'd been coaching for a long time, I believe it was his first NBA head coaching job, or his first non-interim NBA head coaching job, if I remember correctly. And though they were very unique and inexperienced in their respective positions, but they had a very public feud at the end of that first season. The thing that's surprising about this is Bruce has been coaching for a long time, and Jim has been executive for a long time. And I think it would be one thing if it's happened once, but the fact that it's happened 3 times, no, you don't see that too often at all.
Elliotte, you and I were talking Saturday. Names, okay, look, if the losing continues, we're going to hear names pop up. You and I heard Rick Tockett's name pop up Saturday. Are they, are they waiting on something in Pittsburgh? They love Mike Sullivan, and they like Mike Falucci.
Well, Mike Sullivan's not getting fired. Like, no, if anybody's thinking that, that's crazy.
No,
that's insane.
There's no question. But as the losses compound, names are going to keep popping up in Vancouver. It's just the reality of the situation, Elliotte.
Look, I think the Canucks have done a lot of this research already, Rick. I don't think this is anything new. I do think that last summer they were looking into who could be their next head coach. I think that they really did a lot of research into that. And I don't know if they really talked to anyone per se, but I think among the coaching fraternity, it wasn't a secret that the Canucks were thinking about, okay, if not Bruce, then who? Or who could be our long-term person? So if anyone thinks that they've just started doing their research recently, I think they're kidding themselves. I think they've been considering this for some time, and it's just, it's just a matter of when. Can you get, like Rick Tocchet, he's not working for anybody. So if it was Rick Tocchet, that's a little bit different. Mike Vellucci, I could see him absolutely being someone the Canucks would consider, but the question is, can you get him now? And that's not always very easy.
Yeah. Elliotte, the Vancouver Canucks were in Toronto on Saturday. Rutherford, Alvin. Toronto is where Bo Horvat's agent, Pat Morris, is from. They did not hook up. They didn't meet Saturday. You and I have talked to a lot of people on the weekend. Very surprised, no meeting on Saturday, Elliotte, between the two sides.
I was surprised, Rick. Just, sometimes it's just good to sit and chat. What that says to me, and again, I have said this many times, I refuse to jump to any conclusions on what this means for Horvat. I just think that there's two people here who've been around a long time, Jim Rutherford and Pat Morris. Those guys aren't stupid, neither one of them. They're veterans of this business. They've seen everything, and they're both very smart. And again, I said this to you. I know every time I've been on this show, I think I've said this. The Canucks did a complete turnaround and about face in 2 days, basically, with JT Miller. There's no reason the same thing can't happen with Horvat. So I refuse to jump to any conclusions. But that said, I'm a little surprised they didn't meet. I don't think it's, I just think they haven't made any progress. And look, is it a good sign? No, it's not a good sign. Does it mean we're dealing in absolutes here that he's gone? No, we're not at that point yet. But I was surprised that they didn't at least try to get together and see if there was any common ground.
Mm-hmm. Elliotte, you're from Toronto, and we'll forgive you for that. What does Boreas Salming mean to that city?
I have to say, Don, that Salming, to a lot of fans my age, and I'm 52, he's a god. Mm-hmm. He's the same way that people talk about pick your Canucks, Stan Smeel, Trevor Linden, the Sedins. People talk about Boreas Salming the same way. I think I said this on the podcast today. Austin Matthews post-game, he was asked about the ceremony. He said it was a really good sense of perspective about how players are felt about when they're done playing here. And I know sometimes people who play in Canada, they feel they're not loved or appreciated by their fans. If you put out an effort, they are. Like, look at this night for you. Like, I see the pride in Luongo and the Twins going into the Hockey Hall of Fame. Do you think that those guys always felt appreciated? No, they didn't. But when it was over, because they played hard, the Canuck fans absolutely loved them. And that's the reward of playing in Canada. You don't have to be the most successful, but if you give an honest effort and fans can see that you give an honest effort and care, they will love you forever. And I love Salming. I grew up loving Salming, and I just thought it was a beautiful weekend that the Maple Leafs and their fans absolutely knocked out of the park.
Building on something you said there with the Sedins officially being inducted into the Hall of Fame today, how respected are they outside of Sweden and Vancouver?
Hugely. I remember when they retired and they announced their retirement, Don, they played that last game in Vancouver, and then they played that last game in Edmonton. Like, they played and then I remember thinking, I said on the broadcast that night, I initially thought that they should have played their last game in Vancouver. Like, they shouldn't have gone to Edmonton, and they shouldn't have played. And then they played that last game in Edmonton on the Saturday night. And I said on the broadcast, I was glad they did, because I thought it was important that they got the send-off somewhere else too, that people could show them like how much they were respected, and how much people looked at them and said, boy, what great players and great ambassadors. And at the end of the day, like, sometimes people hate people because they're opponents, or the guy just kills their team over and over and over again. But people know who's good and who isn't, and people know who's a stand-up person and who isn't. And It's that simple. And everybody knew that the Sedins, they weren't tough in the terms of the way they weren't getting 300 penalty minutes a year, but they were tough. They took a lot of abuse and they showed up every game. And at the end of the day, I think that's the toughness that people really respect.
And one more, Elliotte, if you don't mind. Roberto Luongo, he's working in the Panthers front office, advisor to the general manager. Has he got a future? I don't know why you're smirking here. Has he got a future as an NHL executive?
Well, the reason I'm laughing is that when I went to the media conference on Friday where they were getting their rings, I said hi to Luongo, and he said to me, BX is really all over you, eh? And I said, well, you would know. I mean, the guy just never stops. And he rolled his eyes and he laughed and he said, I know he never gives up. He's relentless. So I was kind of laughing about that. I think, Don, Roberto Luongo can do whatever he wants to do. Does he want to be an executive? He's going to be an executive. Does he want to go into media? He could easily go into media. I think he's going to be an executive someday if he wants it. I mean, the toughest thing is that if you really want to call the shots on a hockey team, it's a hard job. Roberto Luongo has a family. He obviously wants to be around his family a ton, as he should. Being a father is the most important job any of us have. You miss a lot. You have to throw yourself in there. So I always wonder if it's going to be somewhere down the road, but whatever he wants to do, he's going to be able to do. He's that talented.
Maybe he'll be in charge of the Canucks one day. Elliotte, thanks for this. Appreciate it. All the best.
All right, guys. Have yourselves a great week. And
Elliotte,
thanks again for donating to the Canucks Autism Fund. Thank you.
No problem. Elliotte Friedman, Hockey Night in Canada, 32 Thoughts podcast. He talked about Jim Rutherford being a great quote and how we appreciate that. Jim Rutherford is, despite what you might think of what he's been saying recently, he is a great quote. But there's a difference being a great quote in Pittsburgh and Carolina versus Vancouver, where it's going to get all sorts of attention.
Hot Canadian market,
which it is right now.